Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ESSENSYS PLC AGM's Proceeding presentation. Throughout this presentation, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged, can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via Investor Meet Company dashboard, and you'll be notified by email once these are ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you this presentation is being recorded. I'd now like to hand you over to John Lee, Chairman of ESSENSYS. Good morning.
Thank you, Paul. For those viewers interested in our most recent financial results, the results presentation given on the 20th of October 2022 is available to view via the Investor Meet Company platform and on the company's website. The focus of this meeting is the company's annual general meeting. It looks like most registered attendees have now joined via the platform, so we'll begin. I'm now pleased to open the 2022 annual general meeting of ESSENSYS PLC. In the room with me, I have Mark Furness, Sarah Harvey, Alan Pepper, Charles Butler, and Elizabeth Sandler, non-exec directors. And joining remotely, we have Alex Note, our other non-exec. I'll soon move to conducting the formal business of the AGM, and will then open the poll voting for those in the room with us here. Following that, the directors will be available for a Q&A session. Shareholders were given the opportunity to submit questions in advance of the AGM, and we heard at the start your questions can be submitted to our team at any time during the meeting. After the Q&A session, the poll will be closed and the meeting will conclude. The results will be announced via RNS after the meeting. Now to the formal business of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us today. As you know, today's meeting was called by a notice of annual general meeting dated the 7th of November 2022. That notice explained the various resolutions which are proposed, and today's meeting has been called to consider and, if thought fit, pass those resolutions. For this meeting, in line with good corporate governance practice, all resolutions will be voted on by a poll. This will ensure that the voting wishes of shareholders who couldn't join us in person today are also counted. The terms of the resolutions are set out in full in the notice, so unless anyone objects, I'll take these as read. I now propose the resolutions to the meeting and then open the poll. I now propose the 12 ordinary resolutions. The first ordinary resolution relates to the accounts. To receive the reports of the directors and the financial statements for the year ended 31st July 2022. And 2, to approve the report of directors' remuneration for the year ended 31st of July 2022. Resolutions 3 to 8 propose re-electing the directors. Mark Furness, Jonathan Lee, Alan Pepper, Charles Butler, Alexandra Note, Elizabeth Sandler, and to elect Sarah Harvey as a director. Resolution 10 seeks to reappoint BDO LLP as auditor. And Resolution 11 seeks to authorise the directors to determine audit fees. Our last ordinary resolution 12 seeks to authorise directors to allot equity securities up to the limits outlined in the notice. I also propose the following 2 special resolutions. Resolution 13 seeks to authorise directors to disapply preemption rights in certain circumstances. And the final resolution 14 seeks to authorise the company to make market purchases. And with that, I will now declare the poll open. And for those in the room, if you'd like to vote now or change your proxy vote already submitted, please complete the poll card and hand it in. I now hand you back to Paul to assist with the Q&A session and to invite any shareholders to indicate if they'd like to ask any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, John. As John said, ladies and gentlemen, please continue to submit your questions using that Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. John, if I may just hand back to yourself and Sarah, and if we do have any questions that do come through, if you could direct those to the team and respond, and perhaps we'll just leave that open for a few minutes for the attendees online.
Okay. So I can't see any questions we've received so far. If you have any, please feel free to submit them.
Just to confirm, John, I can see that we've had no questions through. If you do want to hold that for a little bit longer, if the attendees are just submitting them, and then we'll carry on. Thank you.
Okay.
John, as you can see, we have no questions through online, so please, if I can just hand back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now collect the poll voting from the room. And as the poll cards have now all been collected, I now declare the poll closed. It takes a short while to collect the results of the poll. The detailed voting figures will be released via RNS and published on the company's website as soon as reasonably practical. And that concludes the business of this annual general meeting, and therefore declare the AGM closed. Thanks very much for joining us today. Now hand back to Paul.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you to the ESSENSYS team for sharing your AGM proceedings today. Could I please ask attendees not to close the session? You'll be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ESSENSYS PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting proceedings. That concludes today's session. Thank you.